Hello and welcome to another episode of Anniversary Edition. Today we're going to be talking about the classic Pulp Fiction, which celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. Obviously we're going to spoil the film, so make sure you've seen it first and then come back and have a little listen. I'm Sophie and I'm here today with Tom.
Hello.
Hey Tom. So this is a 1994 crime drama, bit of a cult classic, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I've tried to write a synopsis for this, which I kind of sat staring at my computer screen in horror, trying to figure out how to explain it. So I do apologise because it's very terrible. We follow intertwining stories unfolding in a crime-fueled drama set over 3 days. It's so basic.
Yeah.
My little synopsis. Okay, so I have a confession. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. I only saw this for the first time either earlier this year or at the very end of last year. I can't remember when. Because I just never seen it. I'd seen like classic scenes from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd never seen it and I really liked it when I watched it.
That's cool.
And then obviously watched it again for this. And I like this film.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know when I would ever really want to pick it up and watch it again. I'm glad I've watched it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not something that I think I would be inclined to watch on a regular basis.
I kind of feel like I often, when I think about the mood I need to be in to watch this movie, I think I want to watch a Tarantino film.
Okay.
So I tend to be in the mood to watch one of his movies.
Right.
Which is a very specific mood to be in.
Yeah. I can't say I think I've ever really got there.
No. So, I mean, but it's one of those things I think that... how many of his films have you seen?
I mean, I don't think many. I'd have to look at them all and do a little tick chart.
Well, there's only...
5?
9.
5 that I can think of, I think.
So, Reservoir Dogs?
Not in one sitting.
Right, but you've seen bits of it.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction?
Yes, obviously.
Jackie Brown?
Nope.
What came after Jackie Brown? Was that Kill Bill? Kill Bill?
Yes.
Volumes 1 and 2?
Only seen 1.
You've only seen Volume 1, so you don't know what happens at the end?
Cliffhanger. I've been on a cliffhanger with this film for 7 years.
Amazing. I actually prefer... Contrary to a lot of people, I think I prefer Volume 2 to Volume 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Volume 1.
Yeah.
I think I'd be more likely to watch that again than Pulp Fiction.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
Despite the fact, obviously, I've not bothered to see the second.
Yeah. Then Inglourious Bastards.
No, I've not seen that.
Death Proof, which is half of a thing that he did with... Robert Rodriguez. They made two B movies that they put together to make a thing called Grindhouse, which was like a double bill at a sleazy cinema.
Right.
And Robert Rodriguez made one called Planet Terror, which is like a proper full-on stupid, silly, gory horror movie.
Okay.
Which normally is not the sort of thing I like, but that is brilliant.
Okay.
And then Tarantino made one called Death Proof, which is a bit more like him. It's got a bit of a vibe of like the sort of Russ Meyer early 70s kind of like B-movie thing about it, which is about a stuntman who picks up women in his car.
Oh, okay.
So they made those together. They're kind of interesting. Then what else did he do? There's the new one, which is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Haven't seen it, but I would like to.
Yeah, I'd like to see that one. Django Unchained.
Oh no, again, see,
And The Hateful Eight.
I think I've seen bits of Django Unchained. But no, I've not watched it all the way through, and I've definitely not seen The Hateful Eight.
Right. They're like his main movie. There was other things like he's directed segments from things like Four Rooms and Sin City and stuff like that. But they're his main movies, and he's written things like True Romance and Natural Born Killers and what have you. I think on the whole, I generally like most of his films.
Yeah. I mean, of the ones I've seen, I've not disliked any of them.
Yeah, but I think you have to be in a very specific mood for it, because you have to be in the right mood to be able to take the intention and the violence and the humour.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to, I don't know, I think you have to be in a very specific mood to be able to just go, like, suspend your disbelief and go with it, and not kind of feel like things are a bit too much or a bit inappropriate or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely does not shy away from anything. So you're a fan of this film, like,
of Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
So basically, what the point I was kind of leading up to is, I think, with the exception of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I've seen all of his major movie releases.
Okay.
And I still think Pulp Fiction is my favourite.
Interesting.
I don't think he's bettered it.
Oh, okay.
I think the others are good, but there's something about Pulp Fiction which I think it's his best. And I think what it comes down to is his style of writing tends to lean itself into this very kind of rhythmic delivery.
Okay.
And I think that it wasn't as noticeable in Reservoir Dogs. It becomes, I think, Pulp Fiction is where that starts.
Yeah.
Like there's a very distinct rhythm and patter to the way the actors work with each other, which I think is as much down to the writing and the characters that they're portraying.
Yeah.
But I think that subsequent to that, a lot of actors that go into his movies think this is how you act a Tarantino movie.
Right, okay.
And there's only a few exceptions to it. Christoph Waltz is one, Kurt Russell is one, and Tim Roth is one. And they always go in with their own thing. And they fit into it very well, but they don't fall into what is becoming a bit of a cliched Tarantino delivery.
Yeah.
There's a couple of the girls in Death Proof
Okay.
that you can really hear that they're almost mimicking Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction in the way they deliver. And,
right.
And it's almost like, you know, when you see someone and they're doing something and it's like, I know I'm cool doing this.
Yeah.
It kind of gets that kind of vibe. So that's why I think Pulp Fiction is his best, is because it at this point he hasn't created any of his own cliches.
Okay. So it's pre-cliches.
Yeah. So, you know, like he's got the chapters and all that kind of stuff, which he still does.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that his cliches are like, or
bad cliches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's very much his thing and his style, which is great. But it's
an
like,
observation you can't get away from. Like once you've seen it, if you're an actor, once you've seen his films, if you were working on a film with him, you can't unsee what you've seen. You would, despite not trying to, I would imagine, you would just kind of adopt sort of traits that you know are common across his films.
Yeah, and you know, I think that so I watched The Hateful Eight recently again, and there's a couple of moments where you can hear that, and I think some of it comes from, like, for example, Samuel L. Jackson. He's just doing his performance as he does it. Yeah. But he just fits so perfectly with the way Tarantino writes. Yeah,
stylistically,
it's just like the two of them together. Yeah. Just like it was like Sam Jackson was made to speak Tarantino's dialogue, and it just works perfectly. And again, I think that adds to because he's in 6 of those movies.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, and I mean, this is the one that launched him.
Yeah, he's so good in this, though.
Yeah.
Like, and I think for me, because I kind of somehow managed to escape the Pulp Fiction vibe, I mean, I knew that, like, I knew iconic scenes and I knew that there were actors that I know now in the film. But when I was watching it, I was like, God, they're so good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a weak performance in this.
It completely revived and relaunched John Travolta.
Yeah, he is, like, extraordinary in this.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Uma Thurman, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep.
It
It's just catapulted them, right?
It did, yeah. And it maintained Bruce Willis.
Yes.
He'd had a couple of massive flops just before this.
Well, because I didn't even know Bruce Willis was in this.
I know.
When I watched, like, because in my head, when I first watched this, I think, obviously, I was like, okay, well, there's John Travolta, Uma Thurman, Samuel L. Jackson, and that was kind of in my head as it.
Yes.
And then I watched it, and I was like, what? How are all these people in it that I just had no idea they were, like, on my radar during
Absolutely.
Like, during this? And it was a treat. Like, it was a complete treat watching this. Especially for the first time as well, because I was coming at it from such a removed place than the way everybody else watched it when it first came out.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's got this crazy hype. And when you watch a film that's had a lot of hype, like there have been a lot that we've watched on this podcast that naturally I've not seen, that I've been like, oh, yeah, it was all right. Like, you know, it was fine. It was good. It's a good film, but like, I don't love it. Like, why do people think it's that? Why do people say it's their favorite film?
Yeah.
Whereas for this, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get the hype. I get there's nothing like this film.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Like, obviously, like, yeah, okay, Tarantino films have a similar vibe and style. But if someone said, oh, I'm in the mood to watch Pulp Fiction, what else could I watch? I'd be like, aside from a Quentin Tarantino film, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't recommend anything because there's nothing that I can think of that's like it. There's nothing that makes you feel that way, the way that film makes you feel.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's why I said that when I think about watching this movie, I think about I'm in a mood for a Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because I saw this when... So the story behind how I saw this, I remember...
Oh, yes, we talked about this last week.
Yeah, so I remember when Reservoir Dogs came out, I must have been 13-ish.
Okay.
What year did that? Came out in sort of early 90s, like 91 or something like that, 92. And I think by the time it came to VHS in the UK, it was like 93 or something like that. I had two friends coming over for a day who were from school, and my mum said she'd rent a film. And I'd have no idea how I persuaded her to rent Reservoir Dogs. So we watched it, and it was just like, we were like, because, you know, we were like,
kids,
and it was just like, but even then I'd heard about that movie, and I'd heard like, oh, it might be banned and all that kind of stuff. So there was some intrigue about it, and we watched it, and like, you know, I found the ear cutting scene horrifically distressing. But anyway, cut to must have been early 1995, because this came out at the end of 94. So by the time it had come to the UK and gone into VHS and that kind of stuff, it would have been, I think I looked it up, it was probably just before I turned 15.
Okay.
Literally the same month. Yeah, like literally at the beginning of the month that I turned 15. And I was over at my friend's house, and he was like, we rented Pulp Fiction last night and we watched it.
Okay.
Like him and his mum and his dad.
Wow.
And
oh my God, I can't imagine watching this film with my mum and dad at 15.
And he was just like, do you want to watch it? Because we've got to take it back later tonight.
Ooh.
And I was like, yeah. And his mum said to me, would your mum let you watch it because it's an 18? And I just went, of course.
Of course, because that's what any child will say.
And I was just like, she rented me Reservoir Dogs. I watched RoboCop when I was 10.
Exhibit
of course
A.
she would. So we watched it, and I was like, wow, and the bit I found most distressing then was actually the thing that I still find difficult watching today is when Vincent shoots up at Lance's house, and you see the close-up of the needle and the blood goes back into the...
Oh, okay. That's the bit in the whole film that gets you.
That's the bit that makes me feel sick.
Really?
Yeah, that's the bit I find hardest to watch.
I mean, I'm like fine with needles and stuff.
I'm not particularly needle phobic.
Okay. I mean, it's rank.
Yeah, I just think it's... There's certain times when you see the movement of blood that makes me feel sick.
Okay.
Remember when we watched The Exorcist?
Yeah.
Out of all of The Exorcist, it's the bit where they're trying to put the thing in their neck and the blood spurts out.
Oh, okay.
That's the bit that makes me feel sick.
Gets you.
The rest of it, I'm fine with.
That's funny.
So we watched it, and later on that night, my mum and my dad came to pick me up, and we got in the car, and by the time we got to the end of the road, I said, oh, by the way, we watched Pulp Fiction this evening. Just so you know, it's an 18. Cynthia did ask if you'd let me watch it, and I just said yes.
So honest.
Yeah. And my mum was just like, oh, right, okay. Was it, what was it like? And I said, it's really good. You have to watch it.
Okay.
And she was like, oh, right, okay. What's it about? And I tried to explain, like, oh, it's about, there's these two hitmen and there's this, and there's like this going on, but I can't tell you this, that, and the other.
Because you'll find out.
Because, like,
the wrong time.
You need to, like, you just have to watch it because it was unlike, I think I said last week, it's unlike anything I'd ever seen because I wasn't used to this manipulation of narrative.
Yeah. And I loved that, though.
And just like and it's done not to confuse the audience, but not to give away things about certain characters before Tarantino wants you to know them.
And it means that you don't judge characters.
Exactly, yes. And like, for example, there are elements in one story that give away that Marsalis can be compassionate and helpful and protective.
Yeah.
But you don't want the audience to know that until other bits of that story have played out. Yes. He's got to be the tough guy, right?
Yeah.
So, so that was just like, wow, it's so different. Even though I'd seen Reservoir Dogs, then I hadn't cottoned on to how that was structured, and like that hadn't resonated with me. Whereas with this, it really did. And it was when I would have been just turning 15. I was really getting into films and like watching movies, understanding movies, and making them. And I'd started doing things like, if there was a project at school, I was like, can I, instead of writing an essay, can I make a video? So I was doing stuff like that, and so it kind of just caught me at just the right time for it to resonate and be like, okay, this is really different.
Okay.
My mum did eventually watch it and really enjoyed it.
She liked it?
Yeah.
So my parents would hate this film.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. My mum would hate this film.
Right.
My dad would probably be like, yeah. Like, but yeah, I think it's just, Tarantino's just not my mum's cup of tea.
No.
Like, it's the violence, I think. She'd be like, well, it's senseless and I don't need to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with Tarantino. Like I said, it's like some of the violence, it's like, oh, okay, is that over the top? Is that necessary? Is that senseless? Is it funny? Because there are bits in this that are super over the top and gory, but funny.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like you shouldn't find them funny, but you do. But you can't help it.
But then there are so many bits of violence that you think, oh my God, how am I watching this? This is horrendous.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And it completely shifts your opinion of that character.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they're either doing something or they're having something done to them that you see them in a completely different light. And it's the whole manipulation thing that you were talking about earlier. Like, yes. And the only other film that I can think of instantaneously off the top of my head that manipulates the audience in a way because of from a chronological point of view is Memento.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But I still have never seen that all the way through.
Right.
Because I just completely lost interest, and I was like, I cannot keep track of this. I wasn't in the right headspace to be watching it, and I was like, what the actual hell is going on? Yeah. And I just turned it off.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, the way it's done is so clever. It's so good. You're gripped.
Yeah.
And you want to know what happens. You want to know what happens to the characters.
Yeah.
You want to know why people are where they are, and you want to know how they link together.
Yeah. I think like the opening scene just sums up Tarantino. It starts off with two guys in a car having just a completely normal conversation. Yep. And you find out so much about those guys, yet they tell you nothing specific about themselves. The only thing you really learn is that Vincent has been to Amsterdam. He's been living there for a couple of years.
Yeah, because it's just chit-chat.
Just chit-chat. But you find out things that, like you find out their philosophies on things, and you find out and from that you can extrapolate the type of people that they are.
Yeah. Well, and you don't think they're hitmen.
No.
It's so genius. You're like, oh, okay, these are just two guys who like get caught up in something.
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
normal, right? Because they look normal, and then you're like, oh wait, no, they're not.
No, and I think the turning point is when they're in that flat apartment and they're talking, and Samuel L. Jackson's starting to get into his spiel a bit, and he just shoots the guy on the couch.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration?" And it's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, everything shifts.
Like,
and it's so nonchalant.
yeah.
Such a casual, like, oh, I just need to.
But what's brilliant is they walk out of that scene and you still like them.
I know, it's so good. And this is what I mean. Like when I talk about the violence in the film, your perception changes because they're either doing something like shooting someone,
Yeah.
or being shot or being attacked or being punched or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're still completely controlled by Tarantino.
Yeah. Yeah.
As to how you feel about that character.
Yeah.
And it's so clever because ordinarily you're not supposed to be on the side of the people that go around shooting people.
No.
Like that's just generally not the ideal scenario.
No.
To be rooting for the bad guys. But it's so clever.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like and if you take, in the broadest terms, Jules and Vincent's story,
Yeah.
and then so that includes that scene where they go to the apartment, the scenes where they go to see Marsalis, the ones where
and they're getting cleaned up,
when they go, the Bonnie situation, and then their scenes, the second part of the diner scene that they're in, they're almost like the comedic relief of the film, which you don't like. They're almost like which is just bizarre when you think about it that way, because a lot of the humour happens within those segments.
Yes, well, and like when they shoot
Marvin
in the car, and it's like, oh my, and it's just an accident, and you're like, oh, this is not funny, but I actually can't help but laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's just so. It's just this. It's exactly the same as like if someone was having a conversation, like in an office, holding 2 cups of coffee, and someone just accidentally throws coffee on the other on like a third person who happens to be walking past.
Yeah.
It's dealt with in that type of way of like, oh my god, what the hell did you just do? You just put coffee all down someone, like you idiot. Now we're gonna have to all get cleaned up and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I literally shot someone in the head and shot their face off, basically.
And it's like what other, like, can you think of any gangster movie where you see them cleaning up the car?
No.
Like, I mean, it's
brilliant.
bringing that stuff into it that just makes it so funny.
Well, because also it's like, oh god, someone has to clean up the car.
Yeah,
Like, it's the only time I can think of anything really that kind of deals with that side of things, as well as the sort of, the crazy, all guns blazing side, is something like Breaking Bad.
Right.
Where you see the kind of the methodology behind like choices and actions and targeted killings and that kind of thing. That's and people having to clean up mess that they've never dealt, like obviously these guys have, but obviously in this scenario of Breaking Bad, sorry spoilers, people have to clean stuff up. Like, have you seen it?
I've seen, I think I didn't really get into it, which is weird. I couldn't really get into it, and but I think I did watch the first season and maybe a bit of the second.
Okay, but so even in the first season,
like, I mean, I know the general.
They
kind of
have to suddenly start cleaning up after themselves when they make stupid mistakes, and whether that be like cleaning up from doing crystal meth, from cooking it.
So I've seen like there's a bit then they try and dispose of a body in a bath. Right? So like there's that.
Yeah,
it's
so like,
got
and
a
then
similar
it's like,
vibe.
Yeah, you have to deal with that. But obviously, this is on a completely different scale because it's kind of got organised crime vibes, and they're already like very well integrated into the process of it, and that's their life when you meet Jules and Vincent.
Yeah,
but it's so clever because if you take that storyline out and put it into chronological order, well, I mean the way we see it in the film.
Yes.
I was so surprised by the end of their story. I'm trying to not talk about it as if it's spoilers. We're allowed. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I was so surprised. I just never saw it coming.
What, that Jules would have his moment of something's. Yeah. So I mean, to clarify, what happens in the apartment? They get shot at, and none of the bullets hit them, and John Travolta's just like, that's just a weird coincidence, and we just got lucky. Whereas Jules he's like, that's
just completely profound.
It's a profound experience for him, and he's like, and from that point on, he doesn't hurt anymore.
No.
And it's like, that's the moment he's like, I'm on this earth to do something different and better, and I'm just gonna.
And it's fascinating because it completely changes the dynamic between Jules and Vincent.
Yeah.
Which obviously it would, but like, you kind of, because of the way you're introduced to these characters, they're like best friends, or they seem like they're best friends. They know each other so well. They know each other's reactions. They know how they're gonna sort of behave in certain scenarios, and then he just drops this absolute like bombshell.
Yeah.
And you just don't see it coming. But then poor Vincent, like his ending as well, I completely didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And the way that the storylines sync up,
yes,
is just so clever. Like in that one moment, and you're like, oh, okay. And then everything starts to kind of shift into place, and you're like, okay, there's a much wider crossover than I'm aware of as a viewer, and you get really excited. You get like re-excited about the film because you're like, oh no, I want to know what happens.
Because I think that, you know, because of the way the film's structured, like, so you get that stuff with, you set up Jules and Vincent at the beginning, and then it goes into.
I'm trying to think the actual order that we see it in.
Yeah, I've got it here somewhere.
Okay. Oh yeah, I have it.
So it starts with Honey Bunny and Pumpkin.
Yes.
In the diner, and that's like pre-credit sequence.
Yep. Then you get the.
Then you get the Vincent
and Martha's wife.
Yes, which is them going to and killing the dudes, getting the briefcase, delivering that to Marsalis.
Yeah.
Then it goes into Vince taking Mia out for the night, and the heroin, and like, you're like, oh wow, okay, you know he went to Amsterdam, and you think, oh, maybe he's smoking some weed and stuff.
Yeah,
but no, he's actually a full-on heroin addict.
Sorts. Yeah.
And like you get all of that. Then you get the.
Well, in my breakdown, you get the prelude to the Gold Watch.
Yeah, so out of nowhere, flashback to the 1960s.
Yeah, and you're like, what?
And Christopher Walken. It's like, oh, wow.
How's this happening?
Delivering that amazing monologue.
Oh, it's so good.
It's just...
Oh, yeah.
And, to this kid that's just wide-eyed looking at him.
Huh?
Yeah.
And then you get the Gold Watch in the present.
Yeah, which is... which basically sums up that actually the Gold Watch you see almost in its entirety. Yeah. In one go, don't you?
Yeah, because it's like back to back. So you get like the flashback, and then you get like what's happening now. Yeah. And it's virtually in its entirety.
Yeah, yeah. So you see Butch supposed to throw the fight, but he doesn't. Accidentally kills a guy.
Yeah.
He's going to make off with a ton of money that he's placed bets on himself. Then he's trying to escape, but he doesn't have the watch, so he goes back for the watch. Then he bumps into Marsalis, and then they end up with the hillbillies in the pawn shop, which is just like,
that for me, I was like, because I never saw it coming.
No.
Because, honest to God, this film in my head, when I started watching it for the very first time, and when I watched it again, obviously I knew it was coming, so it wasn't quite the same, but like the very first time I watched it, I thought it was all about Vincent and Mia. Like, that was my perception of it, because obviously there's this famous dance, and then I was just like, oh, that's what they're like. I was like, where's the love story?
Exactly.
And it's just not there.
It's not there.
But sorry, that's because that's the next bit.
Yeah, so you end up with that with them in the pawn shop, and I'm always amazed that the scene that involves like the bondage and the rape and the thing, that's the one that got parodied in The Simpsons.
See, because that for me, when you said the bit that in the film, you're like, ugh, I can't watch that, which obviously is the blood needle thing. That for me is probably the bit that I was just like, because I just was not expecting it. It comes out of nowhere. Yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, how is this even like doing anything for the story? And obviously it does.
Yes, of course it does.
But yeah, that for me, I'm like, that's just utterly horrendous.
Yeah, it's horrific, and it's just like, it flips everything, because it consolidates that at heart Butch is a good guy, but it also
Well, you see a villain in a different way.
You do.
Because you
know,
empathise. And you think,
Marsalis, you think that, well, despite all his faults, no one should go through anything like that.
No.
And that's the moment when you see that he does actually have reason, and he can he can actually compromise.
Yeah.
But you can't have him be that person before that point.
No.
Because he has to be.
Yeah.
He's the tough guy that no one can beat, kind of thing. So, and after that, it goes into the Bonnie situation.
Yes.
And then the final back to the diner.
Yep.
And I kind of like, so out of all of that, what's your favourite segment or scene or?
I don't know. It's really hard because,
I mean, they all interlink so much.
yeah, you can't really think of, once you've seen it all, like the whole film once, and actually watching it again, you kind of in your head, whilst you're watching it physically in the order it's being shown to you, I feel like your head processes it more in chronological order when you watch it again and again.
Yes, you start to understand what's happening before what.
Yeah,
and it takes several viewings.
Yeah, so that started happening a little bit for me. So I kind of feel like I feel like to have favourites in this film and to be able to actually like isolate a specific scene, I feel like I need to watch it like 8 more times.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that.
And also because it is confusing. Like you do have to pay attention when you're watching this film. I love the classic, the dance routine.
Right.
Because, it's got a dance in it. Obviously, that's my favourite bit. But also that's been like done so many times in so many iconic ways.
Which in itself apparently is a parody, not a parody, is a homage to, I think, a 60s Italian movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I think that, I can't remember which one it is. It's like Fellini or someone like, there's a really famous movie that's got a dance sequence in it, and it's very, very close to that. Yeah, which I didn't know until recently. Well,
because so bear in mind that obviously I only saw this for the first time at the beginning of the year or late last year.
Yeah.
The first kind of... No, not the first, but I saw from Strictly Come Dancing, Jay and Aliona do this dance routine. And I was like, oh, it was amazing. And the thing that I loved about this is about that dance routine when I watched it on Strictly is that it's a complete... They nail the characters.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting them to as much as they did. And the thing that I loved when I watched the film, and I think that's probably why it influenced my sort of like favourite scene,
of course. Yeah.
is because I was like, oh, it really does completely capture the characters.
Yes.
And I think the reason I like it as well is because it's a really vulnerable, innocent part of the film.
Yeah.
Like, nothing really that bad has happened. I mean, I suppose
she nearly ODs.
But, like, nothing... she hasn't had... Because obviously, like, the other bit that... Sorry, I'm going completely off track, but the other bit that I found difficult to watch was when they have to try and save her and they shove their needle, like... Whoa.
The adrenaline.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, okay, that's intense.
Yeah.
But I think I feel like it's a really cliched rubbish answer, but I think that probably is like my favourite section.
Yeah, I guess it's because it's the one that's the most isolated from the interweaving plot, then, really. Although it does play its part.
I loved the scenes with Bruce Willis.
Interesting, really.
Yeah, because I think it's because I forgot I didn't realise he was
in it. Yeah. The dance is based apparently movement for movement from one in Fellini's 8.5 from 1963. So big Italian movie.
Okay.
So I think that's Tarantino referencing things. No, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I really like the Bonnie situation.
Yeah, I do too. It's good. It's probably my next favourite.
Because I think it's just these gangsters dealing with normal life. And then you've got Jimmy, who's just like, what the hell are you doing in my house?
Oh, that's funny.
And it's just like, why did you come here?
And again, it's not supposed to be...
I know.
It's not funny. Like, it's literally not funny. Like, why are you in my house? Get out.
and then how Jimmy just starts getting on with Mr. Wolf.
Just life.
But he's always kept in his place. Like he tries to get a bit, and he's like, no, you're going to, no, you're getting
Stop.
too. That's
Calm
it.
down.
No, yeah. And I think the interplay between Harvey Keitel, Tarantino, Sam Jackson, and John Travolta in those scenes is just.
It's pretty brilliant.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I just love the way they all kind of like.
Well, the whole thing
together.
it's almost like if you made it now, you could make it as like a Netflix series, right?
Yeah. You
Because
could make it as like a big sprawling.
they are kind of stories within stories.
Yeah, little vignettes within a bigger world.
Yeah, and it is really hard. I think the reasons that I like the sections I like were because of my expectation of that's what I thought the film was about. With Vincent and Mia, and then my surprise at seeing Bruce Willis, and I forget how good Bruce Willis is.
Yes,
like when I watch this, it reminds me of when I see him when I forget he's in things like Death Becomes Her,
right?
Where his acting is such a surprise.
Yeah,
and he's because in my head when I think of Bruce Willis, I just think of Die Hard.
Yeah,
I mean he is John McClane, you know.
Yeah,
and I think that actually it's quite cool to see him in other roles.
Yeah.
And I forget, and he is good. And I was more, I think as a viewer watching it for the first time, once I realised that like it wasn't about Mia and Vincent, I was kind of like, I kind of feel like, and even watching it again actually, I feel like that's the storyline that I'm most interested in.
Mia and Vincent.
No, sorry.
Butch.
Yeah, because I want to know what happens.
Yes. Yeah. I can see that because I feel like, well, I guess because all of the other storylines get wrapped up, but his doesn't.
Yeah.
He rides off into the sunset. You assume, but you know.
Yeah. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, I think when I watched it for the second time, that's probably the storyline that I was, as a viewer, most like, oh, this is exciting because everything, if you take just his storyline and place it in a separate film and run it through, it's really interesting.
Yeah. I tell you what, I would like a Netflix series of his Jules on his walking the earth.
That's a great idea.
Himself. That would be awesome.
That would be...
Because like, I was just trying to think, like, who, at the end of the film, who hasn't either died or kind of, you know, gone back to normal.
Yeah, because you know, Jules.
It's Jules, and Jules has changed fundamentally forever. I mean, I'm sure Marsalis is to some degree, but he's still going to be a gangster.
Well, exactly, because he couldn't walk away from that life, even if he wanted to, because he would get killed.
Mia's just going straight back to being Marsalis's wife, and that's all fine. You know, Lance is still dealing his drugs, and you've got, you know, Jimmy's just Jimmy, and that's fine. And it's I guess you only really have Jules going off to wander the earth. Vincent obviously dies, and Butch and Fabienne going off. So like, you know, they're the only ones you kind of like, oh, I wonder what did happen to them. And I know that like Tarantino often likes to have these weird connections between his movies, that there are things are supposed to, and I think there are.
Just like Disney, yeah,
just like Disney. So you know, there's so much room within his movies to expand. And, you know, it is a great film. Yeah, like if I try and think about, like, what's you said your favourite section you think is the Bonnie situation? Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, obviously I watched it very young and all those iconic moments. Yeah. But the bit that I think I enjoy the most is the Bonnie situation, just because it's probably the lightest bit of the film in a weird way when they're cleaning up after a murder.
And it is pretty genius.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's just one of those things. And, you know, we haven't even talked about the soundtrack.
Oh my gosh, isn't it brilliant?
Which is just like, I mean, again, that was another thing that this was the first time I was aware of, like, I was aware of movie songs, like Ghostbusters having the Ghostbusters theme.
But it's normally just one song.
Like, it's just like, it was like a song, like, you know, Bryan Adams and Prince of Thieves and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas this, like, this compilation, it was like...
keeps coming.
Yeah. a compilation of these songs, and it's like it was the first time that I was like, oh right, every Tarantino movie you get a personalized mixtape sort of thing that comes with it. You know,
do. It's so good and it's so clever.
Yeah, do you know the first film he made that has an original score, i.e., one that was made specifically for the film, was Hateful Eight.
Really?
Yeah, all the others are used from prior pieces of music or film scores or songs, and he just uses them as and when.
As and when he wants.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you think that makes a massive difference? Because obviously I haven't seen The Hateful Eight. Do you think it makes a difference to the way you perceive the story? Like, does it play a bigger part?
I'm not sure. I just think I don't know. I just think it's interesting the way he does it. I mean, you look at something like Kill Bill, and you know you've got things like Battle Without Honor and Humanity by Tommaso Hote.
Humanity,
That's,
there we go.
Yeah, and is it the Perry Mason? Not Perry Mason. What's the other one? Ironside.
Yeah, okay.
Using the Ironside thing, like that
Brilliant.
opening bit.
Yes.
And it's just stuff like that.
Classic.
Because, you know, now to me, it's like, you know, I was aware of Ironside.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably seen the odd episode at my grandma's on a Saturday Sunday afternoon or whatever. But to me, that siren, that's Kill Bill. So, like, to be able to take that stuff and make it
something new, even when it's something so iconic anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, and again, like, his pop culture references have then gone on to be them in other things.
Yeah.
Like we were saying, like the Simpsons, doing that's of
all the
things,
scenes.
that one, and they got away with it, and they did it brilliantly.
I mean, The Simpsons is brilliant. It just
that's amazing.
As a separate aside, but
I think it's in one of the Shrek movies, they use Battle Without Honor and Humanity when all the princesses are gearing up for a bit of a fight, and it's clearly a reference to Kill Bill.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's what he just has this way of creating something so unique.
I was just going to say, he's unique.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to describe the way that he plays with stuff like that, like with music, with your expectations as a viewer, with you kind of with him controlling what you think of characters as and when he wants you to.
Yeah.
And like he picks such specific moments for you to suddenly empathize with a character that you don't empathize with.
Yes. And
you absolutely think you are the worst person in this film.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everything shifts.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, you know, he can court controversy, and he can... Yeah. And some people don't like what he does, and I can understand that, and I can actually see why.
Yeah.
But,
same.
You know,
like, I don't think he's brilliant in the same way that, for example, Hitchcock was.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously we were talking about Rear Window last week, and I think it's the same kind of thing sometimes I think of with shock theatre.
Yes.
Is that, you know, it's there for a reason. It's a specific tactic in theatre, and it's designed to shock you.
Yeah.
But quite, you know, a lot of people quite rightly, but does it have to be so shocking?
Yeah.
Like, yes, okay, I understand what you're doing, and yes, sometimes you should be made to feel uncomfortable to deal with things that you would prefer to not deal with.
Yeah.
But does it have to be so?
Yeah,
you know?
I think there's often a line, and I think that Tarantino tries to walk that line, and I think for some people he steps over it, where it becomes like, okay, I understand you have to go shocking to a point, or you have to push, you know, using certain language or using certain motifs, or showing particular types of violence to that point. And then it comes to the thing with, okay, if you're going to go beyond that point, you have to make sure that there's nothing that makes it come across as voyeuristic or for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
And I think that some people find that he crosses that line.
Yeah. And I think,
I see that. I can understand that too,
Same.
Because it's a very tricky line.
Yeah. I mean,
and you're never going to please everybody, are you?
No,
Because, you know, and if you do, you're nowhere near that line.
Well, exactly. You're not walking it if you're a people pleaser as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I feel like we could kind of talk about this for about 3 hours.
Yes.
But very quickly, favourite character or performance?
Oh, that's hard. When it's such a big ensemble like this.
Yeah, because it does feel like people shine and individual stories and partnerships shine, but it is an ensemble film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
it's really hard.
I love Harvey Keitel as Mr. Wolf. I love Tim Roth.
Oh God, yeah.
He's always brilliant. Mm-hmm. He's one of my I don't think Tim Roth can ever be bad in anything. Like, he can push a performance, he can ham stuff up as the best of them, but it's always brilliant.
Well, him and Sam Rockwell, you like?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
like
I like those two. I kind of put in the same group in that they'll just be really good in whatever they're in.
I don't feel like I've seen enough of Tim Roth.
No, I mean, no, like
to say the same that I could of Sam Rockwell.
He was nearly Severus Snape.
Tim Roth.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, I think I'm right in saying that when J.K. Rowling was writing the character, that's who she had in mind.
Interesting. I mean, I would struggle to pick a favourite, I think, in this. I mean, I really like John Travolta because I think he is so good in this.
Yeah, I mean, it gave us the confused Travolta meme.
I mean, sure, right? Yeah. What more do you want from life?
Exactly, yeah.
And I do think, like, you see the skill of John Travolta's acting ability in this film. And I think in other roles, because obviously, like, my age group, for me, John Travolta will always be Danny DeVito in Grease.
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. Could you imagine? Oh my God, I would love to see that. Wow. Danny Zuko.
Yeah.
From Grease. Can we please
amazing. Somehow
try and fit Danny DeVito to the role of Danny from Grease, because I would pay to see that.
Brilliant.
Yes, he's Danny Zuko from Grease.
Yeah.
And he's so far removed from that in this film.
Yeah.
And his comic timing is just out of this world. And he's such a surprise for me. I mean, he's not a surprise because he shouldn't be, because he is a good actor, but he was great for me to watch.
Yeah.
So it's a definite thumbs up from both of us.
Yeah.
People should watch this film.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not sure when I would want to be in the mood to watch it again, but that's no bad thing. It's a great film.
Yeah, like I said, I think you have to be in the right mood for Tarantino.
Yeah, for sure. And when you are, watch Pulp Fiction.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think everyone has their favourites. So
Yeah. So next week, we're not taking a complete step away from the genre we're in.
No, actually.
But we're going a little bit away.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about Fight Club.
Yeah.
So, tune in for an hour of nothing, because we don't talk about Fight Club.
Yeah.
That was a terrible joke. But yeah, have you seen this? Obviously, I'm assuming you've seen this before.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I saw this. I remember distinctly having it. I had an evening to myself when I must have been, I guess, in my late teens, early 20s. And I think it was like, my friends were off away, or like there was no one around to do anything. My parents had gone away or something like that. So I was just kind of had an evening where I was like, I'm just going to be on my own. I went to Blockbuster and I rented 5 movies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, they did a deal, 5 movies for whatever. And I think I watched all.
Popcorn.
I think I watched all of them.
Wow.
And I just sat and watched films all night. I can't remember what the others were. And I just sat and watched a lot. And this, again, was a movie that, a bit like you with Pulp Fiction, I thought I knew what it was about, and I was completely wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you think it's about Fight Club, right?
Yeah. And afterwards, and I remember saying to my mum, you need to watch this film.
Yep.
And most of my friends as well, you have to watch this film. And they were like, why? And I said, I can't tell you why. You just have to watch it. Mm. And I think my mum was like, oh, I don't want to watch a film about people fighting. And I was like, okay, that's not what this film is.
Well, because of even the posters, like everything, when this film came out, in my head, I'm like, oh, it's a film about, you know, people fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
Brad Pitt leads the group of people who are fighting in like an underground, like
that's what it is about.
Dirty basement.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this film kind of passed me by, shockingly. Right. I've definitely seen bits of it.
Yeah.
I know the twist. So I've seen probably the majority of the film, never in one sitting.
Right.
Whether I know the twist or I've actually seen it, I cannot remember. I don't think I've seen the revelation to the characters.
Okay. Interesting.
But I know that is what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've never managed to sit through this film.
Right, okay. Interesting.
I think I've probably got like an hour through it.
Okay.
But it always feels like a really long film when I try and watch it.
Okay, interesting. Because I remember, like, I persuaded my mum to watch it. She was really shocked by it in terms of like it not being what she thought it was, and what have you. And then she has a friend who's like, she's like 15 or so years like older than her. So her friend now is in her mid to late 90s. And so then when this film came out, she would have been in her mid to late 70s. And my mum made her watch it.
Oh my God.
And she loved it.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just like, because they were just like, it's just not, what is this? So I kind of, again, a bit like Pulp Fiction, very similar. It's like, it wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't anything, it didn't feel like something I'd seen particularly before.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out if I'd seen Seven at this point. Or if I hadn't, if I saw Seven afterwards.
I've seen Seven like twice.
Yeah.
I find it really easy is completely the wrong word, but it's an easy film to watch.
Right, okay.
Like, it doesn't feel like a particularly long film in my head like, when I think about it.
Yeah. It's a bit less. It's a bit more straightforward in that it's a thriller whodunit. It's kind of a whodunit,
right? Yeah.
Whereas with Fight Club, you're like, for a lot of the film, you're like, what am I watching? What's the point of this?
Yeah.
Where's this going?
And I think that's why every time I've tried to watch it, I'm expecting to see this like Fight Club get off the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is really boring. Like it takes a long time to get going. And I reckon the longest I've ever got through it is probably about an hour.
Okay, interesting.
In one sitting.
Yeah. And
then I'm like, nah, I'm so over this.
Okay. Because the guy it's based on a book by Chuck Palahniuk.
Yes, I have the book.
Have you ever read? No. Right. Have you ever read any of his other books?
Oh, God. I want to say yes, because I think one of his more recent books I have.
Okay, because they've made, as far as I'm aware, they've only made a movie out of one of his other books. Starred Sam Rockwell.
Interesting.
Good film. Very much. So he's an interesting writer. And for the film, the Sam Rockwell film's called Choke, and I filmed some interviews with Chuck Palahniuk when the DVD came out, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
So we sat with him for like an afternoon, and I got talking to him because by this point I'd already read Fight Club, Choke, and a couple of others.
Right. Okay.
And I've read a few others. I've read Survivor.
Okay.
And I've read Lullaby. And like his books they're all dark. They're all very strange, and they're all very. I'm
trying to think what. I don't think I have read one of his books.
His writing style, like with some authors, they have a distinct style, and then that's how they write.
Yes.
Chuck Palahniuk, part of the thing of writing for him seems to be how can he write something that's completely different. So, for example, one of his books called Pygmy is written almost like a report, and loads of it's redacted.
Oh.
Literally like blocked out in the book.
Wow, okay.
And so you have to piece stuff together yourself.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I think it's that one. And obviously Fight Club is written in a distinct style, and there's a whole lot about the whole I'm Jack's complete lack of surprise. Like I'm Jack's
Yeah.
spleen and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on in it. So yeah, he's a very unique character,
Yeah.
Chuck. He wrote a book called Snuff as well,
Yes.
which I got him to sign actually.
Ah.
And he wrote something very funny in it, which I won't repeat here. But yeah, and he's got this really kind of unusual style, and he likes delving into that dark, twisted part of the human psyche.
See, I think I'd love to read his books.
I'll lend you some.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I have Fight Club and I want to read it,
Yeah.
but I probably feel like I should fall a little bit more in love with the story.
Well, so interestingly, I think he's said that he thinks that the film actually improves it a bit.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Okay.
like, because I
that
think
rarely happens.
It
in my
does rarely
opinion.
happen. Like Chuck, I think he wrote a lot of short stories.
Okay.
And his novels aren't long.
Yeah.
At least the ones I've read aren't really long.
Yeah.
So I think that because he's got these weird styles that he does and things are different, I think that actually kind of lends itself to filmmaking because you can be very creative about how
Yeah.
you represent those things.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised that some of his other movies, other books haven't been made into
Yeah.
movies. There's one called Lullaby, which is about someone who, if they recite a specific lullaby to somebody, they die.
That's what I thought I'd read, but I don't think I have. Or maybe I started it, but
Yeah.
I don't often start a book and then
Yeah, so
Don't finish
so
it.
yeah, that's
maybe I read the
premise
back of
that.
it or something
Yeah.
at a friend's house and was like, oh, I should, because the copy of Fight Club I have is my friend's.
Right. Okay.
So maybe that's why I'm thinking
Yeah.
I've read more, because maybe I was going to borrow both and
Yeah.
didn't, but I
Yeah.
know of it.
Yeah, yeah. So like he's got some fascinating concepts which are great for movies, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised there aren't more.
Well, I'm excited to actually make myself watch it.
Yeah.
And to talk about it, because I'm interested to see how they actually reveal
Yeah.
the twist.
Yeah. See, I haven't watched it for a long time.
Oh,
So
okay.
do you remember when I'm in that bit of like, are we in the dip where it's not cool anymore? Like, are we in that like I was worried about The Matrix. Am I gonna watch?
Oh,
am I gonna
okay.
go back and watch this and think, wow, this is really stylistically 90s and it doesn't work anymore? I'm kind of intrigued as to how I'll react to watching it now.
I'm excited. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys are too. So tune in next week and we will be talking about Fight Club. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening and goodbye.
Bye.